And speaking of Tulsi Gabbard, we've talked about her time and time again on the show, really calling out the corporate media and their biased reporting of her and her campaign.
Or lack of reporting.
Yeah, and, we did say that, we want to see her on the debate stage. And as it currently stands right now, she is fewer than 25,000 unique donors to being on the Democratic debate stage, which is fantastic. She needs to be up there. And and the American people really need to see her speak. And finally, we get to hear something different than what the media has been, covering about her. Or when you see her being interviewed by the CNN town hall or Stephen Colbert, they keep on regurgitating the same dumb stuff, but they're never really talking about her policies or what she really stands for. So, Paul, I know you have the story in front of you about this recent update for the Tulsi Gabbard campaign. So let's go in a little bit more detail about it.
Right. So this all stems from the DNC's new rules about what it takes to get on the debate stage for the Democratic primary. So what they're asking for is that you're at least getting 1% support in 3 polls, or if you've gotten at least 65,000 individual donations from people, unique individuals, in at least 20 different states. And I think there need to be at least 200 in each of those 20 states. So the numbers that we have right now, Tulsi Gabbard requires only 24,454 more unique donations in order to make it. So she currently has 40,546 unique donors, and so there isn't a whole lot more that she needs to make that cutoff.
She's on track to get on the debate stage.
So this is one of those things, if you want to see Tulsi on that stage, even if she's not your number one choice, it behooves you to chuck $1 or $2 to her campaign.
I know where it currently stands right now. Bernie Sanders and Andrew Yang have met the requirements, and I mentioned in the live stream earlier this week that we really want to see more progressives on the debate stage than establishment candidates, because then a narrative is created to show that progressive candidates are strong and are able to not to discredit the neoliberal centrist Democrats that are on the debate stage, like Beto O'Rourke or Kamala Harris or Cory Booker. Tulsi Gabbard is unique because the establishment Democrats are doing everything they can to discredit her and her campaign and all of her policies. They're already primarying her in her congressional district. They're doing everything they can to destroy her and who she is. And I will say this, she has been handling it very well and is still able to run an effective campaign. I know that in her district right now, she does have a high favorability rating there. But, the way the media is and the way the Democratic establishment acts, they want to get rid of somebody like Tulsi Gabbard because she's a threat to their neoliberal establishment, and she's also a threat to the military-industrial complex, because the military-industrial complex really profits off the wars that we interact in. And the Republican and Democratic establishment have always supported every single military action we've taken, and only Tulsi Gabbard so far has really called out just how horrible it is and why now more than ever we need to reevaluate how we interact with our neighbors across the world, and especially with our military policies.
I want to add in that Rainer Zufall said that she has 20,000 something. Can you send us a link so that we can confirm that? That would mean that she's covered what is that, like a 20th since the article that you're reading.
Yeah.
So that's another 5,000. I think that for me, I think Tulsi represents foreign policy what Bernie Sanders represents to me in domestic policy. Tulsi's, I don't think anyone at this table has Tulsi as our number one pick. We definitely like her. But I think that her great value that she is pushing is that we talked earlier about reparations and how they're trying to pull Sanders in that direction, although he isn't there right now, that if all she's able to do, and I think that the most that she can do, it would be miraculous if she's able to do it, is to pull Bernie Sanders left on foreign policy. Yeah. I really think that if she's able to do that, I think that's the max of what she's going to be able to pull off. I could be wrong. It's a crazy election. But if she's able to get Bernie Sanders and make the conversation about foreign policy to what she's looking for, that's a good day for America.
Right. That's a win.
I also want to give a shout out right now to Hank Kerschel. Thank you for the $10 donation. Really awesome for the super chat. Thank you. Hopefully Bernie would name Tulsi National Security Advisor, would need Senate confirmation, which would be required for Secretary of Defense, because neocons in both parties wouldn't allow it. I do agree with you on that, but Tulsi Gabbard as Secretary of Defense would be a great choice. I think we've said it, as well as numerous other progressive channels have said it too, that a winning ticket would be a Bernie Sanders Tulsi Gabbard campaign.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't want her as VP though. I feel like she would be wasted.
I think that's the case.
The office of vice presidency, the only thing that it's really good for is being the tie-breaking vote in the Senate, and in theory, it's technically the leading voice in the Senate.
Like, I think Nina Turner would be good because she can go there, but she can also spread a message, which isn't currently a role of vice president, but easily could be. Tulsi, she could be Secretary of State, or if she can't make through that, we put her there. I mean, Tulsi is what we need in foreign policy,
and I would like to see her part of the Bernie Sanders administration. Her anti-war stance would be needed and would be beneficial to Sanders, especially on a foreign policy.
Well, and that's the short-term goal: is make sure she gets on the debate stage so that we can kind of help shape what we're talking about. Once we get a bunch of people tuning in to see, what is Inslee going to talk about? What is Andrew Yang or Julian Castro or Kirsten Gillibrand going to talk about? We need somebody on that stage to be like, we shouldn't be in Syria. We left Libya in shambles.
And
like,
she's the only one that says that so directly.
Yeah.
Like, when I remember, it was like, I'm sure a few of you guys saw that I covered when she was on Colbert, and like one of the only good parts where she was like, okay, so let me back this up a second. So there's a video of not Bernie Sanders, Jon Stewart from about 2011. Or somewhere around there, when they were talking about Rand Paul, which is the older one?
Ron is the older one.
Rand Paul.
When Ron Paul was also running as anti-interventionist in the Republicans, and the news just did the exact same thing they did with Tulsi. They just completely ignored her. Like, they would be like, in first place, it's this guy. In second place, it's this guy. Coming after third place. In fourth place is this. They would just not...
Just skip.
They would just completely skip him. It's exactly what they're doing with Tulsi. So, when it comes down to it, all that I really want is for Tulsi to have the ability to make her case. I'm not saying, and I don't think any of us are saying, that everyone that hears her case must agree to it and that's the end of story. But she must be allowed to make her case.
Yeah, first make her case, and also really outshine the other neoliberal establishment candidates that are on the debate stage. And really, the thing is, we've covered on this show just how corporate media is discrediting her. And she hasn't had a real chance to really speak out her message. At the CNN town hall, they kept on bringing up all her past issues and policy issues and calling her a sound apologist and a Russian stooge. At the MSNBC, when she was interviewed by that roundtable at MSNBC, they were still using that debunked article that was written by NBC. Glenn Greenwald of The Intercept debunked it, and they were still using it. And then Tulsi Gabbard correctly said, "You are using the wrong information. That article has been debunked." We're constantly seeing this same kind of bullshit again towards a progressive candidate, and we saw Bernie Sanders being discredited in 2016. We saw him getting taken apart in 2016, and now we're seeing the same thing happen to Tulsi Gabbard. And if she's on the debate stage, finally we'll hear her narrative, we'll hear her policies and where she stands on certain issues, and also challenge the establishment. I mean, that's what we want out of the candidates. I want to see her on the debate stage because I want to see another progressive up there. I also want to see her and her campaign pull Bernie Sanders to her stance on anti-interventionism. So we need to see that happen.
So I want to give a shout out again to Hank. Thank you so much for all these super chats, my man. I salute you.
Yeah, this is the first time you did that, man. Thank you.
Yeah. So what about appointing Tulsi to UN, to that position? Hickey Haley had, very clever. Her diplomacy skills would be epic. Yeah, Tulsi has a lot of positions she could be in. That would be good. That would be useful.
Personally, I would prefer to see a Secretary of State
and
or
because
Secretary
of her
Defense.
connection with Bernie Sanders from 2016, I think she'd be good. And I think another thing is I know a bunch of people who are legitimate progressives that do the progressive everything that currently hate Tulsi Gabbard. I try not to speak to them because I know that would just cause a pointless schism that I wouldn't be able to undo. But it's incredible how many people that the propaganda's worked on, that there's so many people that are progressives, that are legit progressives, that are like, well, she's supported by white nationalists, Hindu nationalists, she's a Russian puppet, and they even think she's pro-war.
Yeah, that's a lot of people have come to me with that. They're like, I heard she was just a big warmonger. It's like, no, the opposite.
Yeah. So hold on, wait. So Hindu nationalists gets support from the white supremacists, Russian stooge, anti-LGBTQ.
Assad toady.
Assad toady.
Specifically a toady. What does that mean? I don't know. Keep going.
Yeah. Look at the Joe Rogan podcast for that one. And then also she's corrupt and all. How do all these things mix up? What is the narrative that the corporate media is trying to do? This is how desperate the establishment media is. They're willing to call her any kind of name and hope it sticks. They just don't have it. And the thing is, independent media, us here at Hardlands Media, Jimmy Dore, Mikaz Sukasa, Tim Black, we're the only ones, and Lee Camp too. We're the only ones really, and Kim Iverson. We're the only ones really calling out the ridiculous coverage on Tulsi Gabbard. The corporate media can't do its job because you know what? The establishment and the military-industrial complex that is partnership with the corporations that own the media want to silence her campaign. She's getting zero coverage. When you did your live stream video on who's getting coverage by the media, Beto O'Rourke is number one, then comes good old Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders with 6 articles, and somebody like Tulsi Gabbard, 0. Because they're afraid. If they give her a platform, they'll silence her.
And this is exactly what we predicted on top of that.
Yeah.
Remember we said that if she does well in these town halls, they're just not going to talk about her anymore. And they went from everyone was chastising her, attacking her, she's terrible, she's all these different things that people have believed.
To just ignore her.
That's exactly what they did with Sanders. It's exactly what they did with Ron Paul. It's what they do to people that threaten their money, and she is surely threatening it greatly.
So again, I want to point out, we started this story talking about the number of individual unique contributors that it takes to get on the debate stage. Tulsi Gabbard is about 25,000 shy. If you want to make sure you see her on the debate stage, it behooves you to throw $1 or $2 at her campaign. Interesting related story I want to just touch on. We talked about Beto O'Rourke announced that he made $4.1 million on his first day. We were saying
6.1.
6.1, excuse me. 6.1 million on his first day, and we were saying, well, how many unique donors, how many individual donors did you have? Their campaign announced just yesterday that they got 128,000 contributions from 112,000 unique people.
And that number doesn't. Unique people is a terminology that no one else is using.
Right. So so that means potentially 16,000 people contributed twice on the first day, which is a little weird. Those numbers seem odd to me. So he got almost double the requirement for getting on the debate stage in 24 hours. It's not inconceivable. Bernie Sanders certainly got a lot on day one.
But he's only doing less in the polls than Kamala Harris, who's been pushed for months longer than him, and she didn't even come close.
But what I'm getting at that's weird is when they announced, this is what we made in the first 24 hours, but they were real cagey about how many individual contributors there were, and they didn't want to release that information. It's like, why don't you want to?
And they
release
still haven't technically.
That's just what they're saying.
Yeah. But because they're saying you're using a different term. If you say individual contributors, that has a very specific definition. They're using they're using terminology that has no specific definition.
Yeah.
I want to see the FEC filings.
Well, if you want to see
that statement to be dubious.
Okay. Well, if you want to see some interesting FEC findings, go to FEC.org and type in Beto for Texas, and you'll notice where his campaign gave a large amount of donations and money to the Texas Democratic Party. But I'm not implementing anything. But
we're going to wait. If something's going to come out, it'll come out.
Final note on this story, though, it's fantastic to hear that Tulsi Gabbard is getting that much closer to the debate stage. She needs to be up there, and the country needs to hear her speak. Hey everyone, did you like that video? Well, guess what? You can hit the subscribe button, hit that ring bell notification, so that way you're updated when we upload new content to our YouTube channel.